I've avoided talking about the Epstein files, mainly because that's not really what this account's about. It started as a real estate account, and then it got a little bit political, just because politics affects the economy, which affects the real estate market, and so forth. I will say this. If no one is brought to justice over these Epstein files, we have a failed government. If laws don't apply equally, if the elites don't face consequences, if investigations are not transparent, we have a failed government. With that being said, I just want to look at what past revolutions were successful just to see what works. This is not me calling for revolution. It's just a little history lesson. Now, the most recent would be Iceland in 2008. I understand there's only 300,000 people there, so there's literally marathons with more people than the population of Iceland, but they had mass protests, shut everything down. They had the government resign, and they incarcerated people. People went to prison, and they had massive bank reform, they had policy reform, and they put things in place in government to go, this is never going to happen again. This is also one of the only successful revolutions that did not involve violence, which is probably the route that we'd have to go considering how large the US military is. But let's go to the next one. There was the French Revolution, which went from 1789 to 1799. It did lead to Napoleon, but it got rid of kings and actually led to democracy at a certain point, so I'm considering that a success. It did have multiple points in it, but this was violent. They stormed the Bastille, which was like a fortress prison, and took it over by force. They wrote in a form of a constitution, and then eventually executed the king. They meant business. And then we got to look at the American Revolution, which is how this country was started. We were started by revolution, so I don't quite understand when people are like, we can't have a revolution. That's how we got here. And the reason that whole revolution started was because of taxes. It was taxation without representation, which sounds really familiar right about now. So I think if we were to actually have some sort of revolution, I don't think it should be violent. I don't even think it could be violent, just considering the size of the US military. It would have to be the way Iceland did it, where we just go, look, we're not paying taxes. We're not paying rent. We're not paying mortgages. We're not paying you anything unless you meet these demands. And elites being held accountable for pedophilia and child trafficking should be at the very bottom of that list. That's bare minimum. We need to get lobbying out of this country. We need to stop sending money overseas. We need to essentially rewrite all the tax codes. But I'd like to know, what would you throw in that? What would you throw in these list of demands?